Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Wealth Approach podcast. This month, we're going to start a two-part series on one of the hottest topics that's out there right now, which is artificial intelligence. Some of the basics that are behind artificial intelligence, a little bit of look into the opportunities we currently see, and then the second part will be maybe some of the risks and other opportunities within AI, short, intermediate, long term. So with that, Megan, maybe touch on some of the key
Yeah.
statistics.
So we thought it would be fun before we dig into what is AI and some of the ins and outs with the different capabilities. We wanted to just emphasize how big of a trend it currently is, and some fun statistics that we found around it. So of the last quarter earnings report for S&P 500 companies, 199 or roughly 40% of them reported AI at least once, but many of them, it was around 11 times in their earnings report. So it's something that investors are looking to see. And it's something that is expected to move companies forward from an efficiency perspective pretty drastically over the next couple of years. Another one that stood out to us was up until 2030, they're expecting the GDP is expected to grow 21% alone just from AI capabilities within different companies and different sectors. So that seems like a significant move just for a technology to start taking control of some of the companies and to be moving it forward. So we thought that was pretty substantial from a GDP perspective as well.
Well, and Megan, looking at that, I mean, whether you divide that by six, I mean, that's roughly a 3% per year increase in GDP. I mean, this is trillions of economic value that's going to be added. So this is a significant addition to growth ahead.
As just as a result of AI. Another one that we thought was a little bit surprising was Accenture forecast that the manufacturing sector will be one of the biggest benefactors of AI adoption. So, Michael, I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit based on kind of what you were thinking when we talked through it.
Sure. So when you look at the manufacturing industry as a whole and you think of how AI could have an impact on it, it's, from a operational process becoming more efficient within factories, within just the, getting from point A to point B. You look at supply chain improvements and just overall more efficient ways to operate different factories or different areas within the manufacturing sector. So from there, you see some of the manufacturing jobs that get replaced by AI, that there'll be new jobs that also get created to sort of work in that area as well. So it's not just the efficiencies, it's not just improvements in supply chain or improvements in the overall technologies, but it's also the improvement of the additional and different types of labor forces within that sector as well.
hmm The other one that stood out to us, and I remember seeing this as a headline when it first came out, but ChatGPT had 1 million users within the first 5 days. Up to today, I think it's closer to around 180 million. So that just shows how excited everyone is, I think, to test out some of these new functionalities that are starting to come out with the limited memory side, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. Um, but it's definitely becoming more mainstream. I feel like people are talking about it more. They're more aware of how much AI is really integrated into their everyday use that they might not have paid attention to before, and how much smarter the technology is starting to get. And then the last one, which again seems substantial, was that from 2022 through 2030, they're estimating roughly a CAGR of 38% for the AI market, which is very substantial, especially over that period of time. So
Well, and,
we'll
and Megan,
see.
thinking about that CAGR growth, right? I mean, it begs the question, should you put all your money invested in AI, right? And that's part of the challenge and to talk through currently. It's kind of the chicken and egg. There's been a lot of growth. And it reminds me of the Bill Gates quote that the first 2 years of a new technology tend to be very, very overvalued. The following 10 years of that similar technology tend to become very undervalued. And
Mhm.
it's, I think, one of the challenges we all face analyzing it and looking at the AI markets currently.
And there's multiple ways to invest in AI, which we'll get to later. But there could be adjacent investment strategies that are potentially not too overvalued yet. So it's just something to keep in mind. So AI is basically a concept where we're teaching computers to eventually teach themselves and take on other tasks that humans currently take on today. So in the early stages, it was more just they're given a set environment, and based on that environment, they know kind of all of the different capabilities within it and comes to the best solution the quickest. So um, IBM came out with a computer, I can't remember what year it was, but it was a computer that was tested for a chess match against the number one user in the world. And this one was able to finally beat the number one chess player in the world. So this is, again, like it's a set data, and it knows all of the potential plays that you could do or the other user could play, and the computer is meant to figure that out the quickest. So that's kind of how it's starting to evolve and take on other roles, and eventually it will have more human-like capabilities. In general, the difference between narrow and general AI, narrow is more of the technology that we are accustomed to today, and that's kind of ever evolving today. So that is something that has limited tasks. It looks at a set data field, and then based on that, it can assess what it should do. So if you think of it as like a smart sensor, your temperature drops to a certain point of time, this computer knows what's supposed to happen now. It's supposed to kick on the AC. And so it's from that standpoint. General AI is a little bit more of the future. That's going to be able to not only learn from the task set that you give it, also learn over time from different experiences, but it will eventually start being able to understand from an emotional perspective, as well as eventually have some of its own cognitive and emotional feelings around technology. So narrow AI is a little bit where we're at today. General AI is a little bit more leaning towards what the future could look like.
And then I think to bring that into kind of something that might be a little bit closer on the horizon, is from the general AI perspective. I think the idea of having a robot best friend is an interesting one that definitely seems a little bit further into the future. But what you could start to see in sort of in specific industries is if you look at sort of the healthcare industry, where companies are spending billions and billions of dollars on R&D for different types of drugs and different medicines and treatments. When you start incorporating some of this general AI, you can start to see a more efficient use of those research type funds, get to different medications, different solutions faster, and also have them tailored specifically to a person's genome, so that that if it's a treatment that's supposed to target a certain type of disease, that you can really focus in on that and make sure that that it is really tailored towards your specific needs as well. So that's something that I think we can look forward to in the more near term future, as as just a different way to kind of bring a practical application of AI to us on an everyday basis.
Definitely. And there's different levels of awareness. I guess it's the best way to put it for AI. So currently we have two that are around and pretty readily used today. The other two are they're expanding and they're evolving right now, but don't necessarily exist today. So reactive, we kind of mentioned earlier, but that are machines that are given a set task and a set data set. They don't have memory. They don't have the capacity to learn. So I think some of the better examples of this are probably the earlier stages of like a chat help system, or where you're dialing a phone number. It gives you a set number of options and what you need, or when you're speaking to the phone, it's not recognizing out of its set data field how to help you. I think a lot of us are happy to see that they're starting to have more limited memory capabilities now, where they're learning, they're a little bit more sophisticated, and it's not as narrow of a data set. So limited memory not only is a computer that knows what to do based on kind of its inputs, but also it has the capacity to learn over time. The limited part is that it doesn't have substantial memory yet. And that's where it's not able to do kind of some of those things that Michael forecasted we should be able to see in the not so distant future. But they're just working on getting more memory and more time for these machines to learn so that they can get the level of sophistication even above where we are seeing it today. So, good examples of this are smart vehicles. They thankfully have gotten pretty smart for self-driving. So that's going to continue to expand as they learn over time. Um, and then we have the two other phases. I don't know if either of you want to go into that where we could see it evolve to over time.
Sure. So when you look at the theory of mind or self-aware, it's really sort of taking that next stage where the AI is going to be more working on its own, working ahead, as opposed to depending on a human input, whether it's the live chat box or it's you're turning left at an intersection and you put on your blinker and the car knows a little bit more about what's going on. So the theory of mind would be, again, just being able to anticipate more of the problems that we're looking to solve and incorporate the appropriate data sets to really sort of focus in on the right direction of what the solution should be. And then self-aware, again, you got the cute picture, a little robot on a bike. Mentioned the idea of having sort of a little robot companion that would be sort of where you get to the emotional side of things, where the AI, the robot, the computer is able to really have more genuine types of emotions and think for itself and make its own determinations.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Perfect.
You
So,
know,
what are some investment plays?
well, when you look at the investment play, obviously, I think the AI movement within the markets and the economy has come far faster than most people forecast. So we've been talking about the trend for a couple of years, but the adoption and the economic impact has been far greater, far faster, I think, than most people expected, overall. And, whether you're one of the biggest companies in the semiconductor industry or the iPhone or some of these other technologies that are out there, when you look at cybersecurity, that's a big concern around AI. How do you protect yourself? So that's a huge industry. Michael mentioned some of the other data storage facilities and some of the other impacts. But to me, looking back to that GDP forecast, looking ahead, yes, there's been a huge movement to date, but the question on a lot of investors' minds is this like .com, where it's way, way, way overvalued and there's a big drop coming on the other side. It could be in some cases, but when you look at the impact and the changes and the evolution that's unfolding, there will continue to be a lot of opportunities, in either direct or indirect plays within kind of the AI investment thesis that's unfolded the last couple of years.
Right. And when you start to look at some of the more periphery type of industries, one thing to consider is, with an AI, it takes a tremendous amount of computing capacity that you need to have these data centers set up in order to, run the different algorithms and really just have these supercomputers online 24/7. And as AI becomes more widespread, that you are going to need more and more of these types of facilities. So to look at whether it's the hardware for the servers or the actual, buildings, the different materials, different locations that you want to have those in, that's going to be an important place to consider from an investment perspective as well. And something that, I think we are picking up on a bit more now is just the fact that it's not as easy as turning a light switch on to kind of turn on or run a sort of AI algorithm, that it does take a tremendous amount of energy to do so. The general, if you're looking at, say, Chat GPT, if you're running a search in that versus a different sort of standard search engine, it takes up 17 times as much energy. to run it the same query through ChatGPT. So when you look at that, and as Megan showed, just the adoption of ChatGPT and sort of everything that's getting run through it, I get the idea of just how much energy is really going to be required. There's the CEO of a large energy company, has been getting requests from tech companies saying, "Hey, we're looking to generate 5 gigawatts of energy of capacity to sort of run our data centers and our servers," without really realizing that 5 gigawatts of energy is what's needed to require the entire or to power the entire city of Miami. So to kind of look at that you're saying, all right, well, from utility perspective, energy production standpoint, what areas are able to sort of generate or to have these different types of data storage facilities because they can actually produce the required power as well. So, it's not as though every single utility is in a position to do that. So it is something that you have to do a bit more research on and make sure that the capacity the supply is actually going to be there to meet the demand. So again, just things to look at, moving forward are, how to actually just power all of these different machines. And that's where you also look to see some companies looking at more of the alternative energy sources, whether it's wind or whether it's solar, which we've seen a big uptick in lately, or do you start to ask the questions again? When do we go back to more nuclear power as well? So again, these are all going to be topics of conversation and different areas from an investment standpoint that we are exploring now and will be into the future.
Well, Michael, looking at some of that stuff too with ChatGPT and some of the functionality that's available now. I mean, when you think about companies and adopting this and the impact to the labor market and other things that are a concern on the horizon, the amount of consulting and other areas that are going to be needed to integrate the abilities of AI with the data sets of individual companies is going to take years and a lot of trust and a lot of testing and a lot of security and other things. So you could see how a lot of the technology that exists today, but the implementation of this into companies and into the economy is going to take, in many cases, years. But you can see the amount of jobs and economic benefit that's going to unfold as a lot of that is integrated. So I think with that, we want to kind of wrap up this month's recording. We want to look at, some of the concerns on the horizon, because I think in general, it isn't all, upside with what's unfolded. There are concerns, like I mentioned, the labor market, other investment concerns, and then as well, maybe some of the other periphery and beneficiaries of the AI markets, where you can find some value looking ahead as well.
So with that, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you all next month.